What happens when Hollywood's most beloved underdog comes face to face with late-night television's sharpest wit? And a simple interview question ignites a firestorm that nobody saw coming. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most shocking moments in late-night television history where Ralph Macchio, the eternal nice guy of Hollywood, found himself in a verbal battle that would end with him being escorted off the set of The Late Show. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story has more twists than a martial arts tournament. The Late Show studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy as Stephen Colbert prepared for what seemed like a routine celebrity interview. Ralph Macchio had been booked to promote his latest project, and everyone expected the standard friendly banter about Karate Kid nostalgia and career highlights. The audience was primed for laughs and feel-good moments, completely unaware that they were about to witness television history. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ralph Macchio," Colbert announced with his trademark grin, gesturing toward the guest entrance as the familiar face of Daniel LaRusso made his way to the interview chair. "Stephen, great to be here," Ralph said, settling into the chair with the easy confidence of someone who had done thousands of interviews over the decades. "Ralph, I have to say, you look fantastic. I mean, you've been defying the aging process for what, 40 years now? What's your secret? Is it the crane kick? Are you doing crane kicks in your living room every morning?" The audience chuckled as Ralph smiled. "Well, I try to stay active, you know. But I think good genes help too." "Good genes, sure. Or maybe it's all that Miyagi wisdom. Speaking of which, I have to ask about something that's been bothering me for years," Colbert said, his tone shifting slightly. "The whole wax-on, wax-off thing. I mean, come on. You're telling me that polishing cars is going to help you fight?" Ralph's smile remained, but there was a slight tension in his posture. "Well, it's about muscle memory. Repetitive motion building strength and technique without you realizing it." "Right, but here's what I don't get," Colbert continued, leaning forward. "Mr. Miyagi has you doing all this manual labor, painting fences, sanding floors, and you just go along with it. Doesn't that seem a little, I don't know, exploitative? Like maybe the old man was just getting free home improvement?" The question hung in the air longer than expected. Ralph's expression shifted from amused to something more serious. "Stephen, I think you're missing the point of the story entirely. Because from where I'm looking, you've got this immigrant character who tricks a kid into doing yard work by calling it karate training. That's not wisdom. That's a scam. You're reducing a beautiful story about mentorship and discipline to some kind of con job," Ralph replied, his voice carrying an edge that surprised both the host and the audience. Colbert sensed the shift but pressed on. "I'm just saying, if I wanted to learn piano, I wouldn't expect my teacher to have me tune pianos for weeks before touching the keys." "It's weird, Ralph." "It's not weird, it's foundational. The whole point is that Daniel doesn't understand what he's learning until later. The movements become second nature. They're ingrained in his muscle memory. When he finally needs them, they're there." "But Stephen, here's what really bothers me about your take," Ralph continued, his voice growing more animated. "You're looking at this beautiful relationship between a mentor and student, and you're reducing it to some cynical transaction. Mr. Miyagi wasn't exploiting Daniel. He was teaching him patience, discipline, and respect." Colbert raised his hands in mock surrender. Okay, I get it. But you have to admit, the whole thing is a little convenient for Mr. Miyagi's property maintenance needs." "You know what's convenient?" Ralph shot back. "Taking a beloved story that's meant generations of kids something about perseverance and hard work, and turning it into a punchline for cheap laughs." The tension in the studio was palpable now. The audience, expecting light-hearted nostalgia, found themselves watching something much more intense unfold. "Ralph, it's just a movie," Colbert said, though his tone suggested he was genuinely surprised by the pushback. "Just a movie?" Stephen, do you have any idea how many people have told me that the Karate Kid changed their lives? Kids who were getting bullied, adults who needed to find their inner strength, people who learned that with the right guidance and hard work, you can overcome anything. And you want to reduce that to a joke about free labor? Colbert, never one to back down from a verbal sparring match, leaned back in his chair. Look, I respect what the movie means to people, but you can't tell me you don't see the humor in the setup. Wise old man teaches ancient martial arts through housework. Come on. The humor? Ralph repeated, his voice rising slightly. You think, it's funny that a lonely kid finds a father figure who teaches him not just how to defend himself, but how to be a man. You think it's amusing that someone would take the time to really invest in another person's growth? I think it's a movie, Ralph. A fun movie with a ridiculous premise that we're all supposed to pretend makes perfect sense. The words hit Ralph like a physical blow. His face flushed, and for a moment, the studio fell completely silent, except for the hum of the cameras. Ridiculous premise, Ralph repeated slowly. Stephen, I think we have a fundamental disagreement about what storytelling is supposed to do. Ridiculous premise, Ralph repeated slowly. Stephen, I think we have a fundamental disagreement about what storytelling is supposed to do. Colbert straightened up, sensing that this interview had taken a turn into uncharted territory. Okay, Ralph, enlighten me. What is storytelling supposed to do? It's supposed to inspire people. It's supposed to show them that they're capable of more than they think they are. It's supposed to give them hope when everything seems hopeless. And you think the Karate Kid does that? I know it does that. I've lived with this character for 40 years, Stephen. I've met thousands of people who've told me how Daniel LaRusso's journey gave them courage to stand up to bullies, to believe in themselves, to never give up. And you want to mock that? Colbert's comedic instincts kicked in, but there was something in Ralph's intensity that made him pause. I'm not mocking the people who were inspired by it. I'm just saying the movie has some logical holes you could drive a truck through. Logical holes? You want to talk about logic? Let's talk about the logic of a kid who's getting beaten up every day, who has no confidence, no direction, no male role model in his life. Then someone comes along who sees potential in him, who's willing to invest time and effort into building him up. The specific method doesn't matter, Stephen. What matters is that someone cared enough to try. But the method does matter if we're talking about whether it makes sense. Does it make sense that a late-night talk show host gets paid millions to make fun of things that bring other people joy? Ralph fired back, his voice cutting through the studio air like a blade. The audience gasped audibly. Colbert blinked, clearly not expecting the conversation to take such a personal turn. Whoa, okay, that's a different conversation entirely, Colbert said, trying to regain his footing. Is it? Because you seem to think that tearing down something positive is inherently more intelligent than building something up. You think cynicism is somehow more sophisticated than hope. Ralph, I think you're taking this a little too personally. Of course I'm taking it personally. This story has been my life's work. And more than that, it's been a source of strength for millions of people. When you dismiss it as ridiculous, you're dismissing all of those people who found something meaningful in it. Colbert leaned forward, his own voice gaining intensity. But Ralph, part of being an adult is being able to look at the things we loved as kids and acknowledge their flaws. That doesn't diminish their impact. Flaws? You're calling the core message of the story a flaw? I'm calling the wax on, wax off thing a plot convenience that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Ralph stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The cameras kept rolling as the studio fell dead silent. You know what doesn't hold up to scrutiny, Stephen? The idea that everything has to be perfect to be meaningful. The idea that if something can't be explained in a way that satisfies your need for logical consistency, then it's worthless. Ralph, please, take a breath here. No, I'm tired of taking a breath. I'm tired of letting people like you chip away at things that matter. You want to know what's really ridiculous? A grown man who makes a living by mocking other people's work, other people's dreams, other people's inspiration. The tension in the studio was electric. Colbert's producers could be seen moving nervously in the background, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let this unprecedented moment play out. "Ralph, I think we need to step back here," Colbert said, his voice measured but firm. "This is supposed to be a fun interview." "Fun for who? Fun for you to tear down something that's brought joy to millions of people? Fun for your audience, to watch you mock the idea that hard work and dedication can overcome adversity?" "I'm not mocking hard work and dedication." "Yes, you are. You're mocking the story that taught those values to an entire generation. You're reducing a tale about transformation and growth to a punchline about free manual labor." Colbert's own temper was beginning to flare now. "And you're turning a simple observation about a movie into some kind of philosophical crisis. It's entertainment, Ralph. It's supposed to be fun. Entertainment that matters, Stephen. Entertainment that changes lives. Entertainment that makes people believe they can be better than they are. But I guess that's too unsophisticated for your taste." "My taste? Ralph, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the difference between meaningful entertainment and a cheesy martial arts movie." The word cheesy hung in the air like a challenge. Ralph's face went white, then red. "Cheesy. There it is. The real Stephen Colbert. Everything that doesn't meet your standards of ironic detachment is cheesy. Everything that dares to be earnest, everything that tries to inspire without apologizing for it, is cheesy." "Ralph, you're putting words in my mouth." "Am I? Because it sounds to me like you think sincerity is something to be ashamed of. Like believing in something is naive. Like teaching kids that they can overcome their circumstances through hard work and mentorship is somehow embarrassing." The studio audience was completely silent now, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or simply watch in stunned silence as two entertainment figures engaged in what had become a genuine philosophical battle. "You know what I think is embarrassing, Stephen? I think it's embarrassing that a man in your position uses his platform to tear down stories that give people hope. I think it's embarrassing that you can't see the difference between intelligent criticism and cynical dismissal." Colbert stood up now too, his own patience finally wearing thin. "And I think it's embarrassing that a grown man can't handle someone pointing out the logical inconsistencies in a movie he made 40 years ago. And I think it's embarrassing that a grown man can't handle someone pointing out the logical inconsistencies in a movie he made 40 years ago." The words struck Ralph like lightning. His face contorted with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Can't handle it? Stephen, I've been handling criticism of this movie for 4 decades. I've heard every joke, every parody, every snide comment. But there's a difference between criticism and what you're doing." "What am I doing, Ralph?" "You're taking something that represents hope and perseverance to millions of people, and you're reducing it to a cheap laugh line. You're using your platform to make people feel stupid for believing in something positive." Colbert's voice rose to match Ralph's intensity. "I'm using my platform to point out that maybe, just maybe, we don't have to pretend that every feel-good movie is a masterpiece of storytelling." "Masterpiece? Did I say it was a masterpiece? I said it mattered to people. I said it inspired them. But apparently that's not enough for you unless it also meets your criteria for narrative perfection." "Ralph, you're being ridiculous. There's that word again. Ridiculous. Everything that doesn't fit into your worldview is ridiculous? Tell me something, Stephen. What exactly do you believe in? What story, what message, what piece of art has ever moved you enough that you'd defend it against someone who wanted to tear it down for laughs?" Colbert paused, clearly caught off guard by the directness of the question. "That's not the point." "That's exactly the point. You've built a career on being above it all, on being too smart to be genuinely moved by anything. But at least I stand for something. At least I believe in the power of stories to change lives. And I believe in the power of questioning those stories." Questioning them or destroying them? Because there's a difference, Stephen. A real critic examines something to understand it better. You're just looking for ways to make it seem foolish. The studio's producers were now visibly agitated, making cutting motions with their hands, but neither man seemed to notice or care. You know what, Ralph? Maybe the problem isn't with my criticism. Maybe the problem is that you've spent so many years being defined by one role that you can't separate yourself from it anymore. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Ralph's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Don't you dare. Don't you dare try to psychoanalyze me because I won't let you mock something that's important to me. I'm not mocking it. I'm discussing it. You're dismissing it. You're treating it like it's beneath serious consideration. And you know what that tells me about you, Stephen? It tells me that you're afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of sincerity. Afraid of genuine emotion. Afraid of admitting that sometimes the simple, earnest message is the most powerful one. You hide behind irony and cynicism because actually caring about something makes you vulnerable. Colbert's face flushed red. I care about plenty of things. Name one. Name one thing you've ever defended with passion instead of mocking with cleverness. I don't have to prove anything to you, Ralph. No, you don't. But you should prove something to yourself. You should ask yourself when you became the kind of person who thinks that tearing down is more valuable than building up. And you should ask yourself when you became so fragile that you can't handle a simple joke about a movie. Fragile? Ralph's voice cracked with emotion. You think standing up for something you believe in is fragile? You think defending the idea that art can inspire people is weakness? I think getting this worked up over a comedy bit is disproportionate. Comedy bit? Is that what this is to you? Just material for your show? The fact that this movie helped kids find courage, helped adults rediscover their strength, helped people believe in themselves again, that's all just fodder for your comedy machine? Ralph, you need to calm down. No, Stephen, you need to wake up. You need to realize that your words have power, and right now you're using that power to make people feel foolish for finding meaning in a story that meant something to them. The two men were now facing each other across the interview space, their voices echoing through the silent studio. You want to know what's really sad here? Ralph continued, his voice trembling with intensity. It's not that you disagree with the movie's message. It's that you can't even see what the message is. You're so focused on finding flaws that you've missed the entire point. Then enlighten me, Ralph. What's the point? The point is that everyone deserves a Mr. Miyagi. Everyone deserves someone who sees their potential and helps them realize it. Everyone deserves to believe that they can overcome their circumstances, that they can grow stronger, that they can become the person they're meant to be. But your version of entertainment tells people that believing in those things is naive. My version of entertainment tells people to think critically. No, your version tells people to think cynically. There's a difference, and the fact that you can't see it is exactly the problem. Colbert's patience finally snapped completely. You know what, Ralph? Maybe the problem is that you've been coasting on nostalgia for so long that you've forgotten what real criticism looks like. Real criticism? You call what you've been doing real criticism? You haven't engaged with the themes, the character development, the cultural impact. You just made jokes about wax and manual labor, because that's what was funny about it. And that's all you can see. The joke. Not the journey, not the transformation, not the message. Just the setup for your next punchline. The studio fell into an eerie silence as both men stared at each other, breathing heavily. Finally, Ralph shook his head slowly. You know what, Stephen? I came here thinking I was going to have a conversation with someone who understood the value of storytelling. Instead, I found someone who's forgotten why stories matter in the first place. Ralph, I think maybe we should take a break here. No, I think we should end here. I'm not going to participate in this anymore. I'm not going to let you use me as a prop in your campaign to convince people that caring about something is embarrassing. Ralph began walking toward the exit, his movement swift and determined. Ralph, wait, Colbert called after him. But there was no stopping the momentum now. Thanks for having me on, Stephen. I hope someday you remember what it feels like to believe in something enough to defend it. And with that, Ralph Macchio walked off the Late Show set, leaving Stephen Colbert, his stunned audience, and a room full of bewildered producers in his wake. The cameras kept rolling for several more seconds, capturing Colbert's shocked expression as he tried to process what had just happened. Finally, he turned to the audience with a forced smile. Well, folks, that was certainly unexpected. We'll be right back after this commercial break. But everyone knew that what they had just witnessed was more than unexpected. It was unprecedented. A complete breakdown of the usual late-night television formula where a simple interview had turned into a battle for the soul of entertainment itself. So there you have it, the incredible true story of how Ralph Macchio's defense of the Karate Kid led to one of the most dramatic exits in late-night television history. What do you think? Was Ralph right to defend his legacy so passionately, or did he overreact to what Stephen saw as harmless comedy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more shocking stories from the world of entertainment.